So, welcome back to another Doctor Who review. I'm now officially coining these episodes as SYWI, or Should You Watch It? And today we're going to be going into all the reasons why you should and shouldn't watch the new episode of Doctor Who. I'll give my thoughts at the end, and I'll make a decision on is it worth watching. Today I'm going to be reviewing the next episode of Season 15, the Interstellar Song Contest. Came out last night on the 17th. My hopes are not high for this episode. If there's any episode where I've been sort of not looking forward to it that much in this series, knowing the names, it was this one. I have no interest in Eurovision. I think it's cool when people win and they go on to do cool stuff like ABBA, but I have no interest in Eurovision. I'm hoping for it not to be an amazing episode. I'm hoping for it just to be at least fun. A stupid, fun episode, and I can live with that. And it's got that bloke in it, Rylan, and it's got Graham Norton in it, and I don't really fully get why, because it's not actually Eurovision, so I don't know why they're there. But yeah, I'm hoping it'll just be some stupid, dumb fun. And it's the third to last episode of the season, and the last two episodes are the finale, so it needs to somehow set up and lead into the finale. So I'll be interested to see if they can do that in a sort of not ridiculous way that is related to the song contest. For some reason, when I've seen the trailer for it, the little like sneak preview thing from the story in the engine, it gave me Voyage of the Damned vibes. I don't know why. I think it's because the Doctor was helping a bunch of people at once, and they were obviously all these different alien races gathered there, like on the Titanic in that episode. I don't know why. It just gave me Voyage of the Damned vibes. If it's half as good, I'll be happy. And I think Doctor Who can do goofy, and it still be quite good. So it's Sunday morning as I'm recording this. I'm gonna watch the Interstellar Song Contest right now, and I will be back with my thoughts. See you in a bit.
1 minute later.
And I'm now back from watching the episode. It was actually kinda good, which was unexpected. I'm very surprised that I didn't find anything ridiculously cringy bad. There were a few moments where it was straying into goofy territory, but it didn't overstay its welcome. It was funny in the moment. There is one point in the episode where I think it did overstay its welcome, but for the most part, the episode was pretty good. It's not going really high on my tier list, but for setting up the finale and for being a Eurovision parody, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't nearly as ridiculous as I expected it to be. It had a really good tone, which is something that I didn't expect. It started off with that goofy feel, like Belinda and the Doctor are really happy to be at the Interstellar Song Contest. They're not, like, nothing even compels them to stay. There's no mystery. They're not being kept there against their will. They literally just want to watch the song contest because they've arrived in time for it and stolen someone's seats in the process. That goofy tone that it starts with, especially with Rylan coming out of deep freeze, I'm glad that they explained why he was in the episode. He came out of cryogenic stasis. It started off quite goofy with all that, and then you get the rising action. The trouble starts to develop, although the Doctor isn't aware of it yet. He just sees something weird when, and we're getting into spoilers here, so if you don't want spoilers, I'll give you a few seconds to click off. So getting back into it, as the trouble starts to rise and the Doctor just notices something's off, Rylan isn't on the screen anymore, and only the cat lady who was co-hosting with him is on the screen, despite Rylan being there on stage and should definitely be being broadcast. So it's only the Doctor that notices that something's up, and that's not an immediate thing. But we as the audience are aware that something is happening behind the scenes. The sort of control panel booth gets invaded by two Hellions, who are a new species of alien, as far as I'm aware. They look pretty cool. They're kind of rock star looking. we as the audience are aware that trouble is rising, and then there is a very sudden tonal change when things go wrong. And this is really spoiler territory. The entire stadium's worth, the entire arena's worth of people gets ejected from the force field surrounding this arena. It gets turned off, they get sucked into the vacuum of space. They are presumed dead. And there's a very ominous but really cool looking shot where there's very little music playing, and it's just, you can see this like mass of people floating slowly away from the space station. It's the lighting that makes it look so ominous and cool. It's really actually quite a good shot. I really like that shot. And that tonal switch up is quite dramatic immediately. Belinda manages to survive. She doesn't get sucked out into space. She gets stuck in one of the little viewing pods. The Doctor has been sucked out into space, so is the TARDIS, so is basically everyone else in the arena. And Belinda's obviously really upset because she's just seen the Doctor get sucked away. So she thinks he's dead, and then she runs into the corridor and she's like crying her eyes out to Cora, who is someone else who has survived, and she was meant to be an act on the show. And that sort of dark, foreboding tone lasts for quite a while, whilst we learn what the Hellions' actual plan is, because that ejecting of people into space is not their end goal. They have a goal to take revenge against the corporation, which have colonized their planet, although at that point we don't know it. They are trying to broadcast this sound that ends up killing people, that we get a brief window into. I think it's called a delta wave or something like that. I'm sure we've had a delta wave before in the show. I might look that up, one sec. Yeah, so there's actually a point in The Parting of the Ways where the Ninth Doctor constructs a delta wave generator to destroy the Daleks, but he doesn't end up using it because he didn't have enough time to calibrate it for the Daleks alone. He would have ended up destroying all the life forms, including humans, that would have been subjected to that sound, to that delta wave, and so he doesn't end up using it. So yeah, that's a quite a cool callback. I didn't know that. And then towards the end, once the Doctor manages to get himself back onto the space station and realizes what's going on and the big plan, so we get this quite sudden confrontation between the Doctor and one of the Hellions called Kid. There is not a lot of sympathy shown for Kid, who has kind of a tragic backstory, although it's not gone into too much. We see this side of the Doctor that we don't see a lot, where he is angry and vengeful, and he's basically torturing or tormenting Kid with this electrocution device that he's got, which is very out of character. And we see how shocking this is, no pun intended, when Belinda arrives at the control room and sees this happening, and she's shocked, and the Doctor sees her, and he's shocked at himself. And you can tell that there's that moment of, I've gone too far this time. And I think that was really good. And I wish there had been more development on that at the end, on the fact that Belinda was appalled. Belinda saw this side of the Doctor. The Doctor should have felt more ashamed of himself. There was a little bit of reflection on it between the two of them. In that moment, Kid's plan to kill so many people reminded him of the Time Lord's death, obviously. And he scared himself. He saw that anger inside himself. But I don't think there was enough reflection on it from Belinda. She reacted well in the moment, but I think there should have been more of a confrontation about why on earth were you doing that? What were you doing that for? I know he was evil, but torturing him is not the right way to bring about justice for the people that he was going to kill, or the people that he injured by flinging them into space. Mike and Gary were fun. I appreciated that they were just very normal people who had very normal jobs, and they were useful in some way. I also liked the fact that they were simultaneously really into the Doctor by the end. They were fawning over him, but there was definitely a point where they were pretty terrified of him, because there's a bit where the Doctor has just verbally scathed Kid over a video call, essentially, over a visual call. Then the call gets cut off. The Doctor says something to Gary. Gary responds, and then the Doctor says, "I like you, Gary." And then Gary says, "Thank God." Because if you were on the wrong side of the Doctor in that moment, there was a good reason to be terrified, I think. So I thought that was quite funny. And I liked them. They were a cool little duo. I know I said this at the start, but it was actually quite similar to Voyage of the Damned in some respects. There were rogue robots that were being controlled by someone else, there was someone sabotaging a ship or a space station to kill a lot of people for revenge for something that not the people on the ship had done. So in Voyage of the Damned, it was Max Capricorn being voted out of the CEO position or something like that. And for Kid, it was getting revenge on the corporation for invading and ruining his home planet and sort of subjugating the Hellions. So yeah, it was kind of similar in some regards, which is quite weird. There were some ABBA references. That was pretty good. I enjoyed that. A little bit of Waterloo. Apparently the Doctor was there when ABBA won. And I think there might have been, in the museum part, I think there might have been something to do with ABBA in there, like one of their costumes or something like that. I'm sure I spotted it, but I wasn't too sure. Also, there is just a passing comment made about a place called the Justice Monolith, which is a suitably terrifying, ominous sounding name for where you take your prisoners for questioning once they're arrested, I guess. The Justice Monolith is kind of insane. I can only assume it has some links to the Jadoon or the Shadow Proclamation in some way. But yeah, Justice Monolith. We need an episode at the Justice Monolith, I think. There's a nice link back to what was set up in the well, where the people on the space station in the well didn't know about what humans were or anything about Earth. That we now know is due to the fact that Earth, quote unquote, ends in 2025 on May the 24th. I think it was generally assumed that that was somehow the reason that the finale was going to explain why no one in the future seems to know about Earth. This episode was set in the 29th century, and Graham Norton's hologram, that was how they got him in. Graham Norton's hologram had information about the destruction of Earth, which makes sense that, within the last 1,000 years, the memory of Earth has not completely faded. Over 400,000 years, to the point of which we're at the events of the well, the people of the well space station have completely forgotten about Earth, humans, and their history. So I'm glad that's got a little bit of clarification on why that's happening now. They're really ramping up the Mavity references. There was a lot of stuff about Mavity bubbles and mavitational fields, and I just think it's funny. I hope this running joke goes on for a while, and that there isn't really a needed explanation other than the Doctor messed something up at the edge of the universe, and now gravity is called Mavity. There were no interdimensional cable random equals funny shenanigans, really, other than one, and it was what I alluded to that messed up the tone at the start, where Belinda had just survived. She had ran into the corridor where she met Cora and her agent. Don't know what her agent was called. There was a moment where they saw a screen showing the dress rehearsal that was going on, that was being played instead of the real live broadcast. And I do not know what this creature was called, but at one point they were looking at the dress rehearsal screen, and this CGI yellow trumpet creature appeared and started singing a very annoying song, and it went on for way too long. You could hear it for way too long, and it ruined the tone, in my opinion, for that scene, because Belinda is clearly upset. Cora is trying to comfort her. They've just realized that something is completely wrong, and this horrendous singing starts playing. That was the only bit of random equals funny annoyance that it had to delve into, which was a shame. I think it could have done without it. Okay, going on to the big spoiler now. The big spoiler. Go away if you've still not watched it. Right in the ending credits, Mrs. Flood bi-generates into the Rani. So the Rani is now back, which is insane. I think this is really cool. I'm all for it. She looks awesome. I like her dress. I think this is really cool. I hope they do flesh out her character beyond she's evil. She's got an evil plan for Earth. I'm glad that she seems to have Mrs. Flood's weird confidence. Mrs. Flood has always been very much in the know. She's always seemed one step ahead, especially one step ahead of the Doctor. And I think it's good that this younger version, this new actress, has embodied Mrs. Flood's weird confidence immediately. That confidence of, I know what I'm doing, let's go and do it. She wastes like no time as well. She bigenerates. There is barely like, oh, I'm in a new body now. She just remarks on how inelegant the process of bigeneration is. The dynamic seems really fun. I'm looking forward to it. Few questions before we get on to what I think could have been done better. Does the Rani have a TARDIS / an equivalent? I say that because how on earth has Mrs. Flood been getting everywhere? She is at a bunch of different points in time as Mrs. Flood. She's in a bunch of different positions, which either means she has supplanted herself into those positions, or she has been in those positions for a while and got herself into those roles. Why did Mrs. Flood need the Doctor to triangulate the signal with his Vindicator for her to be able to start his plan? Because the final Vindicator signal happens in this episode, and she remarks, "Oh, brilliant! There's no need to rush. I can watch the show, but after that, I'm off. I can do what I need to do now. Now that he's triangulated the signal for me." Why does she need him to do that? I'm very interested. We're also still no closer to answering why Belinda looks like Mundy Flynn to such a high degree. I'm thinking it's maybe something to do with how Mrs. Flood is everywhere at a convenient time. It's like echoes through time or something like that. I hope they come up with a cool explanation for it, because I have a feeling that Belinda, she either dies in the next, in the finale, or she won't go travelling with the Doctor again. That's my theory. Now moving on to things that I think could have done with a bit more polish. I think, as I said, a bit more should have been said by Belinda when she saw that the Doctor was tormenting kids. She looked shocked and appalled, but she didn't really communicate that after the fact. I was hoping that it would lead on to her being completely unwilling to travel with the Doctor and demanding, right now you have to take me home. I don't want to be associated with you. I am a nurse. I help people. You have the name Doctor, and you're proving that you're capable of hurting people to that degree. Another big spoiler here, they reintroduced Susan, the Doctor's granddaughter, and these episodes I actually have seen. I've seen Susan's episodes. And I think there could have been a better way to reintroduce Susan. She was put into flashbacks, which I don't mind. I think it would have been silly to have her in person in some way. I think there could have been a better way to do it. But I'm wondering, is this going to pay off in the finale somehow? Is Susan's appearance going to be impacting the end of this season? Because I think that's a lot of characters to bring back. Or is it going to be something that develops into a next season? This is more of a question. How does bigeneration work? Because I assumed when it was the 14th Doctor and he bigenerated into David Tennant still and Ncuti Gatwa, that it was something to do with the fact that Ten's old body had come back to heal and move on from something, and that he still had a bit of that way to go, and that's why his adventuring spirit left with Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor. I assumed that was it, but maybe it's a complete choice, because it seemed to be for the Rani. She seems immediately aware, oh look, we've bigenerated. Maybe she did it out of a choice, maybe she still needs Mrs. Flood for something, she needs that old body, but it's like a part of the Rani left Mrs. Flood when she bigenerated. She is meeker, she's not as confident. This new, the Rani rather than a Rani, is everything that Mrs. Flood was, just in a new body. So yeah, how does bigeneration work? We need some more concrete answers on this. The Rani coming back didn't quite have the weight of something like the Master's return in the David Tennant era. I think it would have been more impactful if the Doctor had been experiencing it alongside us, rather than us already being now aware that the Rani is going to do something with the Doctor, and the Doctor not even knowing that the Rani is on the horizon. I think it is now more about how this character develops going forwards and acts moving forwards. I hope that they are a recurring villain, like the Master, because we've not had the Master in this era yet, other than being mentioned as being trapped inside the Toymaker's tooth. Final point, just like Eurovision, the songs weren't that good. All I've ever heard about Eurovision is that the songs are not good and that England is the favourite to lose. Thankfully, there was only a few seconds of each song that was played in this episode, but I guess at least they were being true to life. The only one that they played out in full was the one sung by Cora, who was a Hellion, and it was sort of a lament for her people. But that one was good because she was singing it in the language of Helion. So it felt a little bit more emotive than if she was just singing like a pop song or a sad song in English about the destruction of a world. I'm glad that was the only song that they played out for more than like 30 seconds. So, where does this rank on my tier list? Well, I actually think I've changed my tier list a little bit in terms of where it was yesterday. One has moved down. The Well is still clearly at the top, still a high 9.5 out of 10. Looks is still 8.5 out of 10. Story in the Engine is still an 8 out of 10. Number 4, I'm going to say, is The Robot Revolution. I'd say that's a 7.5 out of 10. That stays the same. I'm now going to say that Lucky Day and the Interstellar Song Contest are both 7 out of 10 episodes. They're not bad episodes, I just think they're not really episodes that I am itching to watch again. They're good, they serve a purpose. The Interstellar Song Contest is dark when it needs to be and takes itself seriously when it has to, but there are some things about it, there are more things about it that I picked up on that I would have wanted to see changed in some way than most of the other episodes. So, should you watch this episode? This is the question that we're answering in these reviews from now on. Should you watch Season 15, Episode 6 of Doctor Who, The Interstellar Song Contest? I think if you're watching this season, it is not one to skip because it sets up the finale. I think if you are showing someone the show, this is not a great episode to show them because it brings back a lot of returning characters like Susan and the Rani, and someone that you're trying to get into the show is not going to have the context of any of those characters. I wouldn't say it's a brilliant episode standalone. It is much better in the running of the rest of the season. I think that you should watch this episode if you're watching Season 15, but otherwise, it wouldn't do any harm to miss this one out. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. Let me know, did you enjoy the Interstellar Song Contest? Are you happy that Susan seems to be returning and the Rani has returned? Is there anything that you would have liked to see done differently? And otherwise, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.